Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolebarger and welcome to this week's Middle East Update. It's the week of September 27th, and as you can see by our surroundings, we're back home up here in northern Idaho. And you know, we missed a week. We missed last week due to the remembrance, memorial, and celebration of our son who went to heaven. And so now that we're back, we're recalibrating. That's kind of our word. And we've got a ton of things to cover in this week's update. So let's jump in. Let's set the stage. Over the past couple weeks, we've had, of course, the Israeli elections. We'll talk a lot about that. Russia, we have this whole triad that are significantly visible in the whole Ezekiel 38-39 scenario of Gog and Magog and all of that. But we're starting to look at Turkey and Iran and Russia through different lenses. Russia's a tough one to figure out because sometimes they seem to be really coming alongside and assisting Israel as an ally, and then every so often it's like a role reversal and the lines are drawn. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Just as we have the frustration of the Israeli elections, don't be surprised if it goes to a third one. We're seeing the Palestinian, what's called the Abbas Fatigue. And just yesterday in the United Nations, Mahmoud Abbas, whether he follows through or not, made the statement that there will be Palestinian elections over this next few months. And so we'll have to wait and see about that. And then, we always sort of take a hot air balloon up and kind of view Israel from above and take a look at what's taken place in Jordan, in Egypt, with Hamas in Gaza, of course with the Golan in Syria, as well as Hezbollah. So that's kind of what we're going to be covering this week. But let's jump right into our news bites again. What can we say about the election? It really is a dead heat, and both candidates, whether it's Benny Gantz with blue and white or Bibi Netanyahu with Likud, it appears that unless somebody blinks, major concessions being made by one side or another, there's not going to be a united government, a unity government, which I think then is going to lead to the a third election in the winter. But here's the fallout. Trump seems to be already distancing himself a bit from Netanyahu. I think Trump's going to be frustrated, to say the least, because once again we're looking at this ultimate peace plan, this deal that is still going to have to be put on hold until a bona fide government exists in Israel. Now, Bibi's working, overtime to paint blue and white, not just central left, but far left, and again the joint Arab parties. Them sort of, it's helping Bibi out by them saying they may put their votes in with blue and white. And of course, Bibi's going to say Israel can't exist without some form of Zionist government. And so this whole thing with the Arabs, the Arabs just want Bibi out. So let's put anybody else in. But I think that's going to end up working against it. As Bibi is quoted, he says, there will not be, nor can there be, a government that relies on the anti-Zion Arab parties. These are the parties that glorify and celebrate bloodthirsty terrorists who murder our children and our troops. And so, again, at the time of this recording, I have no idea what's going to transpire. And so I think the bottom line as of today is President Rivlin has tasked Netanyahu to form the next government. Since their initial unity talks have failed, the Likud leader has the support of 55 MKs, but he needs 61. And so the big question is, how is he going to get the last 6 to kind of cross the aisle and cobble together a coalition? So he's been given 28 days for this to take place. So the clock is ticking. And then should Netanyahu fail, then blue and white leader Benny Gantz will get a crack at the coalition building. So that's it. 2 weeks of treading water. And it'll probably be another 2 weeks of that continuing treading. Now, we talked a little bit in the very beginning about Ezekiel 38 and 39. So, we have Iran, and again, the leading supporter of state terrorism worldwide. So there's no question of where Iran stands in terms of Israel. And then we mentioned Russia, and that's been sort of back and forth. And now more and more we're seeing Turkey seething in terms of their hatred of Israel. And Turkey is now seeking to go nuclear. The military forces, that would mean that military forces of the 3 most powerful members of the Magog alliance, Russia, Turkey, and Iran, are now either already have a nuclear arsenal, or attempting to have the right to acquire nuclear weapons. And so once again, that's a major concern, obviously, to Israel, and really important for us to find that jigsaw piece that fits into the puzzle of what we call the end of days. Again, there's an article here, I can see I'm running out of time, about the relationship with Russia and Israel. I'll let you read that. And then I found it interesting because as we're in that hot air balloon looking down, there's a lot of discussion now with the rhetoric of the so-called ultimate peace plan, and in the elections, Bibi is saying that he's going to annex the Jordan Valley, and so that leads to the issue with the Jordanians. Remember, right now, the 2 countries that have somewhat quiet borders and peace with Israel, Egypt, obviously, and the other is Jordan. But things are happening in Jordan. The whole island of peace. If you remember that story where this was really, this was where a Jordanian soldier kind of lost his mind and shot up 7 Israeli school children. And since that time, the whole thing with the response of the Jordanian president, ashamed that one of his soldiers would do something like that, and even sitting Shiva with the parents of these little teenage girls, again, they created what was called the Island of Peace. And it became a place where it was symbolic of a good relationships between Jordan and Israel. It was, I think they had a 25-year lease that's been up, but officials in Israel now have expressed concern that Jordan is refusing to negotiate a continuation of this peace agreement with Israel, and they're in a sense saying, no, this is ours, we want it back, and you can't come. So it's just another one of those signs of concern with the Arab factors and their hatred of Israel. I mentioned Abbas Fatigue, I guess you would say. He's in this 15th year of a 4-year term, and it seems that percentage-wise, 61% of the Palestinians are overwhelmingly bored, fatigued, and a vote of no confidence for Abbas. And so at the United Nations, as we mentioned, he's, in light of the Israeli elections, he's claiming that there will be Palestinian elections as well. And of course, that brings up the question is, who would be his replacement? Who would have a chance? And this article of Abbas Fatigue goes into some detail. I'll let you read that on your own, of who might be next in line. I want you to see a photo that I've entitled Deal of the Century. And this has been leaked, supposedly what Trump is, part of what Trump's deal is. And you'll see, the dots and the lines and the roads, and all the black would be in this picture that you'll be looking at. And by the way, you get this on our website, holygroundexplorations.com, and get the PDF that goes along with this. But all the black would be West Bank, or the new Palestinian state, and all the white that you see are the settlements that would be annexed by Israel, and those little, and you see the connecting roads through it all. So what a nightmare. When we think about what takes place in Gaza these days with rockets that are flying over, can you imagine rockets flying into Ben Gurion Airport, a shorter launch probably from some of these areas in black than it is from Gaza into Sderot. So, nightmare. Very interesting article on Rabbi Kaduri once again. I'll sort of end with this. We know that, by the way, on Monday, it's a greeting for you, Shana Tova. We will have the Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah, followed by the 10 Days of Awe, concluding with Yom Kippur. And then in a week or so after that, we have the 8-day Feast of Tabernacles. So these are the fall festivals that are taking place in Israel today. Important for us as believers to find value of how in our roots that we can reconnect to some of these things, because I believe that Rosh Hashanah, the Days of Awe, and Yom Kippur are just great spiritual hygiene for believers. So something to look into. I'll probably do a YouTube on that in the next few days. But I want to conclude with this article from Kaduri. If you remember, Kaduri, kind of a Kabbalist, but well-respected rabbi, died in 2006. And there was some question in some of his writings if he had revealed or met Jesus, and proclaiming Jesus as the Messiah, sort of rocked the Orthodox world. But in June, an article came about again with Kaduri. Again, there were over 200,000 people that came to his funeral. So again, well respected. But according to eyewitnesses of Kaduri's writing, that he predicted that the Messiah will be revealed, you gotta love these words, following an election stalemate in Israel. As a small gathering, Rabbi Kaduri was asked when the Mashiach, or the Messiah, will come, and he answered, when there will be an election, but there will not be a government. That was his words. So this prediction is even more powerful after the second round of elections that were held last week, in which we still do not have a government. And as I've mentioned, don't be surprised if we go to the third election. And then, obviously, with all this in mind, on Monday, when I said Shana Tova and I said Feast of Trumpets, you realize as Christians, there's no better time than for that trump to blow on the Feast of Trumpets and for the church to be raptured. just interesting times in which we live. So with that, God bless you all, and shalom.